I would like to welcome everyone to the Roxborough Roundtables. My name is Jessica Putman, and I'm the student coordinator for the tables. Today our topic is Let's Bloody Talk. And our host today will be Nini Rao.
Hi, I'm Nini, and I'm a professor of chemistry here. And welcome to the talk.
I'm Ed Santilli. I am a professor of physics here.
Hi, I'm Barbara Kimmelman. I'm a professor of history here in the academic dean of the College of Science.
I'm Eleni, I'm a PA student.
I'm Valerie, I'm a pre-medical student.
I'm Becca, I'm a pre-medical student.
I'm Usha, I'm a PA student. I'm Nat, I'm a biochem student.
I'm Ali, I'm a professor in athletic training.
I'm Ann Bauer, and I am a professor of biology.
I'm Anupriya Chaudhary, I'm a professor of microbiology. Gwen Allen, director of science articles.
So today we're Let's Bloody Talk, a topic that apparently is so controversial that when the email sent out, I got reactions from, oh my God, that's a great idea, to why do you want to talk about it in public? So let's talk about why menstruation has such a stigma. Eleni, you want to start?
So one of the big things that I wanted to talk about was why periods are not openly discussed in schools. Because as a female, if you're in class and you need to go to the restroom, you need to change a tampon, you need to change a pad, you have to tell your instructor that you don't feel well or you need to use the restroom. You can't just say, oh, I need to go change whatever product. And so I think that's a big issue because it happens to everyone. Well, it doesn't happen to everyone. It happens to all women, and so it shouldn't be something that's hush-hush.
In all fairness, when I was in school,
This is Ed.
hi, I'm Ed. I'm sorry, I'm Ed. When I was in school, I didn't say, "Hi, Mister, I need to poop." I just said I needed to use the bathroom. So that seems to be the same thing, right?
This is Jessica. Well, being a girl sometimes, depends on how heavy your flow is. You might have to go to the bathroom a lot, and I know in high school, I would be like, I have to go to the bathroom, and they'd be like, again, can't you hold it? And I'm like, well, it's that time long, so no, I can't hold it. So, I mean, honestly, sometimes you have to tell them because they're you have to go too many times, and they're like, why do you keep going to the bathroom?
Is there a difference between male and female instructors in terms of their responsiveness to your needs?
Well, for me, I went to an all-girl high school, so I don't know, I guess even the male teachers, I guess since it's all girls, they're used to it. So I didn't have any differences, but I'm not sure how it would be for someone who went to a girl high school.
I went to a private Catholic school, and if we said anything about it, we would actually get reprimanded for bringing up a private topic. Yeah, you would get pulled out to the side and be like, this is inappropriate, the other children don't need to be hearing that you're going through this. And that was pretty traumatizing as a kid, because you couldn't you would have to really hide it, especially in your little Catholic school outfit, you had to run with your little pad and hide it. If it crinkled, everybody would look at you, and it was pretty bad for a little girl to have to go through that.
This is Usha. I went to a public co-ed school, and I think it depended on the teacher, really. I mean, some of the younger male teachers got really awkward about it, and they kind of just let you go. Some of the older female teachers, they understood, but they were a little bit more I don't know, they weren't more lenient about it. They got a little bit more, I guess because they understood, and I don't know how to describe it. Some of them were a little more strict about when you could go, because some people went multiple times during class, which I understand your point.
But any other experiences that because I know as not as a student, but as an instructor, there will be times in the middle of the class that I would be teaching and talking, and suddenly I realize probably something has happened that I probably don't want to happen, and I was very unprepared. But obviously, I just could not stop the class in the middle and then run outside, even though sometimes that's all I wanted to do. So.
Can I ask you a question, Evan Lane? What I don't understand about it, why is for something that a little more than half of our population does from age 12 to 50, just a lot of people, why is there any stigma or embarrassment involved in any of this. That's what I don't understand. And I just want to put on top of that, my daughter is breastfeeding now. And I think it's another similar biological function of women. And why is, some people freak out about it. I mean, she's pretty demure, she doesn't, just do it, but there's some people who I know that feel uncomfortable. And I would love this conversation to go somewhere along those lines, is why is there so much laughing about it? Why is there so much stigma or difficulty? It's what we do. I mean, what's the big deal?
One of the things I think has to do with it, with the stigma and the laughing and the giggling, is that young women begin this process between around the ages of 11, 12, 13. That is precisely when young men are at their silliest and most idiotic. And, they are sitting around going, oh, there's blood on her skin, and you feel so humiliated and it's so embarrassing. And I think there is this stigma about bodily functions in general, but I also think you can't dissociate the bodily functions of women as let's say it's second-class citizens, oppressed minority, whatever you want to call it. Their bodily functions are dealt with in a slightly different way. Rather than being celebrated, it's in secret, it's suppressed, and there's also this emotional level to it. Like, you really want a woman who's having her period to be the president of the United States and have to push that button, because there's this sense that in addition to the physical discomfort, that there's all kinds of emotional issues. So there is that kind of stigma associated that has long histories in at least Western culture, but I know enough dribble that I wouldn't say it really is an expert, but in other cultures as well, I think there's similar stigmas.
I think anything related to gender differences is stigmatized, whether it's, even about talking about relationships or anything. My kids still think that God sent the babies. So I think it's just a general thing that everything is stigmatized around where it's a different gender.
I feel like every woman body part or any, like as you said, like relationship aspect is always like hypersexualized, like especially with the breastfeeding and stuff. Like people get uncomfortable because that in their head that's not what breasts are for. And like if you see a breast that's like very sexual, then rather than like the actual function of like a woman's breast to breastfeed their child.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've witnessed in public. I used to work at the Franklin Institute, which is a museum. We have like a room for breastfeeding, but we're not allowed to tell anyone. We can tell them if they ask, but like if they're already breastfeeding out in public, we can't be like, we have a room upstairs for you to use. Only if they ask us or if they inquire about it, can we tell them about it. But I mean, I've witnessed people walk by these women breastfeeding, but similarly walk by someone, like another female who has like a low cut shirt and like the boobs are like spilling out of the shirt, and be perfectly fine with them, but then make a smart remark to one of their friends, or they'll laugh at the person breastfeeding, like why is she doing it out there? Could she go to the bathroom or something like that? And I'm like, Valerie, what Valerie said about like how it's like sexualized in one way, but when it's used for a natural purpose, it seems like demonized basically.
So this is Ali. So I think we need to distinguish between breastfeeding in public, which I think is completely different than somebody having a period and needing to go and excuse themselves in a manner different than, hey, I'm bleeding, I gotta go. So I think these are two separate topics along the same lines of it's women, right? But they're two separate topics. One is about being out in public, breastfeeding, exposing certain parts of your body, which I think is completely natural. We have two children, so no big deal. You cover up and you're fine. You can do wherever on the bus. I don't care where you do it. But just there's a fact of just flopping your breast tissue out there and sticking a baby to it, and that's not trying to mean it, but versus appropriately covering up. Just because we live in a society, you don't see a guy walk around sticking his junk out and goes, "Hey, I want to stick my junk out," right? I mean, you don't see. That's kind of like along the same. If you need to do something, you cover up appropriately, and it's fine. Versus, you having to speak out in some sort of cryptic manner to go to the restroom, and I think they're two separate topics. In my opinion.
This is Yusha. kind of goes back to the whole sort of modesty. Like older generations are much more modest, and like they teach younger generations. So like, I mean, I know our generation is we're much more open about things, but I know like my parents and my grandparents are much more conservative about things. Like if I ever mentioned my period like out in public to my grandmother, she'd probably lose it. But even I can mention it to my mom just because she's my mom and she's a little bit more, she's younger, and I think it's just that transition. So I think as like our generation gets older, it'll be less of an issue, just because I think we're a lot more comfortable talking about it than our parents or generations above us. But I just don't think it's reached that level yet.
It's interesting that you tell me this, because I think in where I assume which part of India you are from.
Actually, I'm adopted, so.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah.
So especially in the southern part of India, I haven't encountered something like this, but there's a whole cultural thing about, whenever the girl starts having a period, there is a ceremony associated where the men, women, everybody know, like it's made such a big spectacle for an 11-year-old, and everybody it's like, they call it something like an initiation ceremony, starting yeah, and everybody knows it. Some places they ban women for the 5 days to go in a temple to pray, to go in the kitchen. I feel a lot of these cultures came because there were no pads, and hygiene was an issue, so they wanted to segregate. Not necessarily, that's what I like to believe, but it used to be a big spectacle where the older generation themselves make it a spectacle out of something which is so natural, the men, women, everybody knowing that, this person started her periods, and then the 5 days she was not allowed to go to the temple, go to the kitchen, and they used to say hostility. Part of me, I understand, maybe there were no pads that time, maybe not to mess around,
Let me follow up on the question. Why is blood dirty then? There is one of the things one of the reactions I've encountered since this topic came up is, oh my God, I don't want to see blood. I don't want to, talk about blood. But blood is something we all have. We all cut ourselves, and
I'm Becca, and I think that's like, it's different in this case, but because of like, people see us dirty because of where it comes from. Like, I think it's different. Like, if someone had like a nosebleed, they wouldn't really think it's nasty. They probably like try to help the person, but like, this would be a different scenario because of where it comes from.
This is Ali. As a healthcare professional, I see blood all the time, no big deal. But I go in hospitals a lot of times, and vomit and feces gives me a different visceral reaction, right? So I don't think this is where it comes from. It's just the person and their visceral reaction to it. I cannot handle the smell of vomit. I start to gag myself. And if you've ever smelled feces that has various bacteria in the hospital, I'm not going to say which one, but it will smell the entire ward to the point where people don't want to be there, right? So I think it's people have a visceral reaction to stuff. I actually know a physician who almost failed out of medical school because he or she can't handle touching veins. So they just, the look of veins, the feel of veins, just looking at veins and imagining themselves injecting a vein with something just would make them almost want to faint. But they almost didn't make it out of medical school. They have to work their way through it. So it's just different things give people different visceral reactions. I don't think necessarily it's the origin where it's coming from. Some people will have different experiences. I don't know.
This is Kia. But the thing is, like in media, we'll see blood, gore, vomit, poop, pee, like everywhere. They'll show it, movies, TV shows, commercials, anything. But they won't use red liquid for like a tampon commercial or a pad commercial. Like, it's not allowed. Not even just like a red liquid. Not even like actual blood. But what it's used for. They use it for liquid.
But they do the same for Pampers too.
Right,
They're not going to use a yellow.
But like what it's used for, they just don't. It'll be blue. Like blue comes out of us or something.
I shared with my daughter, who's 24, that Nini was going to have this round table and what the topic was, and she gave me a whole, oh my God, we read for an hour about it. But this was her take on the blood, and I'm not even going to tell you the context in which this happened. But she says, this is blood, but it's not just blood. There's sorry guys, there's clots in it, and there's mucus in it. And she said, I've never experienced what an afterbirth feels like, but there are times when that's what I imagine it feels like. And you're talking about standing in front of a class, and all of a sudden there's this, and you go, oh
yes.
my God, I know what just came out of me. And it's not just like cutting your finger and a little bit of normal blood. I mean, it's more than blood. And so I said to my daughter, yes, it's more than blood. It has that much more function, and we should celebrate how different it is from you. Oh, shut up.
But, you know, this is, menstruation is what makes humans, and a certain species special. In terms of evolution, there are only handful of species on Earth that go through this process. So, as scientists or as humans ourselves, why can't we actually openly discuss in terms of medical, you know, benefits or health issues? Why can't we openly discuss it without having so much emotions and feelings to it?
So this is Anne. I think there's huge cultural diversity around the globe. As you gave the example, when I lived in Sierra Leone, this was complete, women in Sierra Leone walked around with no shirts on at all. People would walk around breastfeeding. It was completely 100% normal. There was no stigma whatsoever. And menstruation was part of life. It was celebrated, etc. But you look around the world and there's huge cultural and religious diversity when it comes to these topics, especially with women. And there's a lot of history involved in that. So the thing with this topic is it depends on where you are as to what the view is, and whether it's a celebrated event and celebrate the entire lifespan, or is it hidden and no one's supposed to say anything about it, versus having a baby. When people have a baby in the United States anyway, across the board, you have a baby and everybody's celebrating. People put balloons out on your yard. I mean, that whole part, but they're not, and they film it now. Historically, that wasn't allowed to be filmed for a period of time, but you go back before that when people had babies in their homes, right? And that was a different scenario than it was for a period of time when it was all medicalized and sterilized and only certain people could be there, had to be done a certain way. Now we're going back the other direction. So there's a range out there.
Hey, my name's Amanda. I just have a question. Why do you think it was okay for women to walk around like that in Sierra Leone, but it's not here?
Hi, my name is Nella. It depends on like where you come from, because I'm from Africa, and when one of my friends, she had a period, and her dad celebrated, like the whole village knew about it, and like her sister, her big sister, had to talk with her. It's like the person older than you is supposed to like sit down with you and like talk to you about it and the process, what you have to do, and all that stuff. It's like the culture where you come from.
So for, and again, in Sierra Leone, a breast is looked at as being sexual. It's looked at, what Valerie and several other people have said, the breast is looked at as a feeding mechanism. And everybody looks at it that way, and that's what it's for, right? So it has to do with how you look at the body part in that particular culture and what it's viewed as. But certainly nobody would show their knees. People are completely covered from here to there, right? So again, it's a cultural, this whole part of the body, the whole middle is always covered. And so in the United States, if you went down to the shore, it's not covered at all, right? So it's around the world, there's huge differences.
What I'm getting though is a theme going through this, is when young women become sexual at either exposing a breast or becoming sexual because they're having their period, and they then could have sex or whatever, that's looked at as a woman being sexual in our culture as being wrong or dirty or something wrong with that. And I think that's the association. That's why I brought it up at the beginning, that in our culture at least, a woman is put down for being sexual or hidden for being sexual. And I think that's what, I'll just throw that out there if you think
I
that's
think
what it is.
this is what confuses me in the culture I'm talking about. On one end, they celebrate it. It's it's a big spectacle, they do jewelry, but it has certain derogatory tones there where they said, oh, now you cannot go and kiss your brother or touch your brother the same way, or now you cannot be running around naked everywhere, you know, with your brothers or your siblings, because now it means also an announcement for early marriages that, you know, now our girl is getting ready. It's kind of, it has certain subtle derogatory tones to it, and they want to make you believe it's a spectacle, you're getting jewelry, it's basically the beginning of the dowry that you're accumulating when you're going to get married, but it's like an announcement like, okay, my girl is getting ready, she's 13, 14, 15, you know, the cultures where early marriage was the norm. That is how it's done. So it has tone of derogation there.
Do you think there is any, this is post question, this is me, in general, throughout history, from the dawn of Christianity or dawn of the humanity, civilization, many religions view women, especially during the menstruation period, as second-class citizens. They are segregated from society, from, you know, the temples or out of society completely. And there are still societies nowadays who still separate women during that period. Do you think there's anything in terms of overall influence of history and religion has anything to do with how we view this period of women's time?
This is Eleni. So I am Greek Orthodox, like super religious, and so when my sister and I started getting our periods, our mom told us, she was like, listen, part of the church's history is that while you're on your period or while you're menstruating, you cannot receive Holy Communion. And so in our religion, at least, Holy Communion is this big deal, like it's the biggest part of every service. And so as a young girl, to be told like, this is what everybody before you did, you can't do this, when you've also been raised to be told like, Holy Communion is what you go to church for, like you pray the entire time to prepare yourself. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of like a double-sided sword, like you're supposed to prepare yourself, but you also can't go because this is what everybody else has told you not to do. And so I feel like a big portion of it is like, again, we're in the 21st century. Some of this stuff might be applicable in your religion and your spirituality if you believe in it, but also at the same time, like, if we're having a conversation about this, like, why can't you, like, why are you seen as tainted or dirty and you can't go to church or temple or receive communion, which is, it's just ridiculous, in my opinion.
I mean, it's still very much there in India. I know those part, like, not my family, not the very educated, even in the educated, in southern part, it's still very prevalent. It just started, you know, it's been going on. I think it started initially with that, you know, that you were going to make a mess because they were not passed and hygienic conditions, or I want to believe that they wanted the women to rest, so they were going to go into the kitchen, but they're not supposed to cook and do those kind of things. But it's a big spectacle. It's like, well, you know, then your brother start wondering why do you this is not allowed to go, especially if it's your younger brother.
Well, Liz Ed, Nini, you asked if religion had some influence on this stigma, but I think that's a question that needs to be posed very carefully, because it quickly goes into, did the Bible or any religion influence people or vice versa, right?
Right.
And that would be a topic that I don't know if we really want to get into today. Maybe if we have another 7 hours. But.
I don't believe actually, at least not in our scriptures, there's no way to do that.
I have a little different question. Just for all the men in the room, when you guys were about the same age as maybe your classmates when they were getting their periods, did you think it was gross? Like, how did you feel? Like, what did you guys think when you first heard about it? Exactly, because I feel like that can really impact how girls feel about it, like talking about it, because
Ollie, I'm gonna address this. Just for the sake of the radio, Ollie really raised his hand.
Are you gonna address this? So even in high school, I still had a health fitness route in high school. A lot of health classes, biology, and I knew about the reproductive system, the anatomy, the physiology, like a champ. I didn't know what really was going on until I was maybe in my second year of undergrad, when I saw blood in the whatever, by the toilet. But then a second year undergrad, I was almost done. I was in athletic training. I was an EMT, first responder. I'm like, why is there blood in the bathroom? Who's bleeding? And why? And how can I fix this? Compression, elevation. Do I need to honestly, but for the maybe 5-6 years prior, I had taken reproductive anatomy, physiology. I could tell you everything you want to know about ovulation, but it just something didn't click until like later. You know, well, that makes sense. But it's one of those things where I was never, I was educated in school, but at home it was never thought. I have a Middle Eastern background there, so I had zero concept what was going on. Zero. Zilch, nada. And you something would happen. I don't know, it's like a 5-day long process where you basically would faint from losing so much blood. Who knows? Nobody tells you this stuff. Let's be honest.
I'm Jamie. I think it, depending on what background you have, like for instance, you're very health science related. I am too, I'm a PA major. But I feel like somebody that's like not as invested in those classes, hasn't taken the biology and the anatomy, doesn't really understand, just knows that this is what happens, like doesn't have a good understanding and like appreciation of like this is natural, this occurs, like they don't like know the details of like the cycle and stuff like that, so they like not discriminate but are like a little more standoffish about it.
This another. I think it depends on how it was introduced to you at first. Like, how did you learn about it? Or like, who told you about it? Like, it depends. Like, if the person said, "Ew, period is nasty," you're just gonna have like that mentality that, ew.
This is Ed. When I was a kid, I don't remember how I reacted to this, to be honest with you. But I could tell you how I probably reacted to it, knowing myself.
Anything
And
that is evil.
probably, I didn't care, but I also didn't feel, I didn't think as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old that what I said, I didn't think about the consequence of things I said. And I was a goofball, so I joked about everything. And I think that is a problem. I mean, I don't know how to fix it because you're a kid, right? How do you tell someone who's 12 all the consequences of jokes that they're trying to make, right? And that goes a long way with a lot of people. I joke about people for everything when I was a kid, and now I'm joking about this, and then a woman feels stigmatized. I could see that happening. Not saying it did.
This is Usha again. Kind of to piggyback off of what you just said, I know at least where I went to school, we didn't really get the sex ed talk or whatever in like health class until like middle school, and even then it didn't really go very like in depth with it. So I honestly think because some girls get it really early, like they might be in elementary school and they may have never learned about it, and like the boys have never learned about it. So I think that might be part of it too. Like I don't think they're actually teaching kids about this stuff as early as they should, because I learned a lot more about it after middle school. Like once I was in high school and I actually took biology classes, that's when I actually learned more about it, like other than from my mom. But if you're a boy, you're never gonna learn it until biology class if you take bio. So you spend all those years like being like joking around about it and whatever, and like girls, like when you're 12 years old and someone says, "Ew, that's gross," it's like it can be kind of hurtful without meaning to be. So I think that could be part of the problem.
I'm going to make one small comment. This is Nini. When I was in middle school, I actually went to middle school in China. They actually did introduce this idea of physiology, and and when the sexuality and the reproductive system came up, boys and girls were separated.
Yes, that's what happened.
This happens today.
It was separated, and the boys learn about male physiology, and the girls learn about female physiology.
And in my school, we were sent home at the end of the day. So like it wasn't even like as soon as you were done the video, your parents picked you up. So like you couldn't like go to the playground and be like, "What did you learn?" Like they separated.
In our school, it was the State Free and the Always companies who used to give us samples.
Oh my God,
segregate the boys, and the boys used to wonder. My brother really found out because he was so persistent. Why did they take the girls away? So he found that somebody who would tell him why they took the girls away, and he kept asking my mom, "What is this State Free from seeing the commercials on television?" And I remember my mom said it's something very weird that you wouldn't even think about.
Well, I'm sorry. When I was in 6th grade, which would have been like 1965, so it was a very long time ago, and I realize now that I just assumed that they never got the boys together to talk about what was happening with them. I just assumed they never did. But there was one day when they got all the 6th grade girls together, and we all went into the auditorium, and they let the boys out. They got to have a recess, right? So we're in there watching this stuff and hearing about this, and all of a sudden, there's like gravel being thrown up on the auditorium windows, and all these guys are going, woo, you know, we know what's happening, you know, it's like, oh my God, and they're screaming, we know what's happening in there, and everything like that.
That's how the
It's just really weird.
training
That's what
is
started,
done.
yeah.
And if you start it early enough, it's not going to go away because then we're laughing and we're laughing, you know, then we came to for when he actually figured it out what it was about. But they got the best, like the curiosity out of him. Like, why did they take the clothes away? And then what is this for, mommy? What is this safety ad for? You know?
Okay, so this is Jessica. I went to a Catholic school online, so in 7th and 8th grade, we never really learned, even as girls, like what your period really was. I mean, the most I learned about it was from my mom, and even that wasn't like fully in depth at the time, because I didn't start my period until like middle 8th grade, so like she didn't really go in depth in it. So like the first time I had a period, I thought I was dying. I was like, there's no way I should be losing this much blood in my life. Like, I really, literally, I was in the bathroom crying. My mom came and was like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I'm dying. And she's like, why? Like, there's so much blood. And she's like, and then it all like, but the first time, like, and then I went to an all Catholic girls' school, high school, and even our health classes, because you only had to take like half a semester of health class, even that didn't even like fully talk about like females' periods. Even the guys' health classes, I don't even think they even talked about any health related female. The most we talked about was if you had sex, this is the STDs that you're gonna get. That's pretty much it. So like when it came to like being a Catholic all-girl high school, we didn't really have like sex ed or this is what comes out of you every month. Like this is what's gonna happen. This is like you're gonna have cramps. This, that, and third is what you do to relieve it. Like we really didn't even have that talk, even being an all-girl high school. So I think what everyone was saying about like if you started early, like 7th, 6th grade, like and incorporate both at the same time, like not just separate each sex and like let them do their own thing and you guys do your own thing, just all together and like everyone has to learn about it and actually like truly learn about it. Like I feel as though there wouldn't be a stigmatization to it.
So I can address that. This is Anne again. I teach a sex ed class for a year through the Unitarian Church at age 10 and 11, and it's boys and girls together. It goes an entire year. The parents have to see all the materials ahead of time. It's called Our Whole Lives. The book is about thick, and every week both boys and girls meet together and discuss, just like we are in this forum, and it is 100% accepting of what the human body is, and all the way up through and including sex. Everything soup to nuts. And that program's been around for 20 years.
What you're saying makes so much sense, okay? So the question that naturally is, why are you one of the few that are doing that? And the usual experience for women and men too with sex is puzzlement, confusion, embarrassment. Why are we not doing what you do? And instead, what I hear from Jessie, your first experience as a woman is terror that you're dying because you weren't told this was going to happen, or embarrassment to make you feel somewhat lesser. There's a reason why we do these things. We don't do things in society for just no reason. And I would just be interested in getting your points of view. Why women, again, essentially what makes them women, menstruating, breastfeeding, even with having babies, that they're made to feel lesser instead of greater by a male-dominated society.
Just one quick thing. Like, yes, I thought I was dying. Like, my mom did tell me that I was going to bleed, but I did not realize how much was going to come out. And that was the scary part.
This is Zakia. My mom actually didn't really talk to me about it. I told her like what was happening. She was like, oh, okay, just put a pad in and like you'll be fine. And she gave me a pamphlet. I went to my room. Your eyes were like an hour. It was like, I'm dying. Can't be a kid anymore. Like, this is it. I'm a woman. I'm like 12. Like, this is it. I didn't learn too much in school about it. All my information really came from me deciding that I need to know what's going on right now. Every 5-7 days once a month. I looked up books. I looked up pamphlets. I went online. Like, I know all my information from like outside sources. Still don't talk about it I talk about it more with my mom because I'm older now. My little sister, she's only a year younger than me. When she got her period, she came to me first. Like, she did not go to my mom. She came to me. I helped her out, told her what was going on, like, gave her what I knew. Gave her pamphlet, sat there while she cried, pat her down. But like, even like in my family, we don't really talk about it. And my mom didn't want to talk about it to me when it first started. It's kind of like she didn't want me to maybe grow up to be a woman yet. Like, I don't know why it was like pushed down by my own mother to not like know about these things, not talk about it.
I think in my household, when I was like first getting it, I remember when I was younger, I'm one of 5 and I have 2 younger brothers and a younger sister. When I first got it, my mom would always be like, whenever you use like your pads or your tampons, you like bury it and cover it so the boys can't see that you're like getting your period. You never talk about it. Like, and I remember one time when I was like 14, 15, I like flipped and I was like, that's it, I'm telling the kids like, what's going on. And I literally sat down the boys because like my mom was freaking out that day. I'm like, listen, mom's on her period, so she's a little mad. You wanna know what this is? They would come out and be like, why are some green little wrappers in the trash can? And I'm like, someone has to tell these boys like what it is. And I think my mom always told me that like she was always taught that like when you tell the boys that like girls are getting their period, it's like an acknowledgement that they have sexual like organs, which doesn't even make sense to me that the children can't like. I feel like it's more enlightening to them if you tell them from the beginning like this is what is happening, rather than just like having this mystical thing go on and the girls go in the bathroom and there's like 4 layers of toilet paper and I don't understand what's happening kind of thing going on.
This is Lenny. To piggyback off of what Valerie said, I think a huge problem is that, I'm sorry, I'm just going to chalk it up to men in general. Men are okay with women having uteruses and vaginas so long as it's at like their disposal. Like, they're perfectly okay if they can stick their penis inside, but the second blood starts coming out, everyone's like, oh, well, I don't know about this
And the Zed. You're
a brave man.
Actually, everything you just said is true. I was going to say something like this earlier about the town. You mail them a push-up bra, and that whole social structure will be different. As soon as the breasts look a little better than they do, it's over. And so I totally agree with what you're saying. And actually, I think that most of the stuff we're talking about here, like, in 1965 they separated the classrooms, or separated the men from the women. That is too recent, because then you start asking why they did that, and there's something beyond that. So we're everything we're talking about, trying to find why things are stigmatized, it goes back way, way further. And I think ultimately what it comes down to is, I'm going to man bash too now. It's just, as men love sex, and as soon as that image becomes tainted in any way, we don't want it. And that's what I just feel caused the stigma.
That's
it's
what
my reptilian brain.
And I've quite literally heard a guy say like, it's okay, like I don't want to see like that blood, like that's not what a vagina's for, like that's not what a pussy's for, like so that's what it's actually
That's
for.
exactly
like
what
that's what it's for. But people have actually said that, like it's totally true.
Ed again? I'll just keep saying it. I've heard women say similar things, especially when it comes to breastfeeding. I know some women who won't breastfeed because that's not what that's for.
Because that's a cultural attitude. It's not
It
just
is.
one that's held just by men. If there's a cultural attitude going around, and men and women hold it, or a majority might. I wanted to introduce a kind of a different take on this a little bit, and talk about, at least in the West, and this might not sound that good, but I think a lot of the stigma might truly have developed at a time, late 19th, early 20th century, when women, lower middle class and middle class women, began to enter a public sphere like business offices, walking down the street in suits of clothes that, so if you were just a mom at home, you could wear a couple of layers of skirts, you could, stuff some rags in there because that's what women did, and you weren't going outside except maybe to go to the push cart on the corner and then you were coming back in. But if you're going out into this office world where there are these standards of professionalism, I'm not talking about Mad Men now, I'm not really sure any of that was true. But, there are these, now you're working in an office, now you're wearing one layer of clothing. You're just wearing a slip and a skirt. What are we going to do about this? And I think advances in women's economic status actually exacerbate these public expectations of women that you're not going to bleed in public, that you're not going to bend over with cramps. You've got to display that you're just as good at men at doing this and that this isn't going to interfere. And one of the things that really enhanced women's ability to move into those spheres were the development of sanitary products like sanitary pads and ultimately tampons that would allow people to go about their business in these public spheres without, having to wear 8 layers of clothes so it wouldn't leak out, and without the risk of a leak when you're giving your big presentation to a law firm or something.
There's something on top of that as well. It's
speaking
when
of
they're on their period, they're irrational. They can't make decisions. They can't be in positions of power because they can't handle it. We recently saw.
So you have to hide. You have to hide that you have.
Where's the proof?
Where's the data?
Oh no!
Show me the data.
Oh, I know, but that is so prevalent.
I don't mind that because I can get away with anything.
But that's so prevalent.
I can
You have
be
you shall not be
vain to
mentioned.
people
Said that in a recent debate.
I have to point out, and I think most women think this too, men have their own sort of PMS times. They do. Everyone goes through PMS.
Which is all here.
They say that it's when they're women or not.
No, I don't agree with that. I'm just saying that myth or mystery, I want to say, came to fore because women were in the market, that they were competing with men for jobs. So a way of not competing is to say a woman can't handle a job because she has a period and she's crazy during it. That I'm not agreeing with that at all. I have a daughter, but that was out there. And I think that was used as a method of discrimination.
Which would have made it that much more important to hide that you're having it.
Exactly, that was my point.
Someone has said before, is that I feel like in the human body, the female's body has been over sexualized. It's like the female, she doesn't want to breastfeed, but if I breastfeed, my breast is going to drop, and then it won't look as good as it used to be anymore. So we tend to move away from stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of there was I was reading an article from Al Jazeera last night, and one of the things what they were saying was Comedy Central, of all places, the 90s show hosted a panel in which he and the guests discussed menstruation in response to a Time Open ad that argued that Hillary Clinton is fit for the presidency because she's post-menopausal and therefore stronger and more energetic.
Really?
Oh my God! No wonder I feel so energetic.
I hate that when the stereotype of when a woman is a little angry or something's going wrong, it always comes to, oh, you're on your period. Like, I don't understand why that has nothing to do with it. Like Anne said, where's the proof? Like, where does it say that when we are on our periods that we're acting irrational or we don't have control? Like, why is that come to be? Why does that have to be? That should be something.
Sally, physiologically speaking, you have a lot of hormones that get released that have an effect systemically on your body. And I mean, it affects some people more than others. Some people are rarely affected by it, and some people are more affected by it. Whether it's the pain that causes you to have a lower threshold of tolerance, whether it's the fact that you're bleeding and you have to hide it, psychologically those promotes a lower threshold of tolerance of maybe little things, could be bigger things. But there are physiological effects that are happening that are changing your threshold of tolerance, whether it's truly physiological in the sense that, yeah, there are more hormones in your system that are making you do this, or now you're dealing with something that is very private to you and something's going on with your body, and you don't want to mess with the little things, that you have something more important going on than your significant other or your brother dealing with a toy or whatever.
I'm just saying, like, it shouldn't be the first phrase that comes out of someone's mouth when a woman is upset or having a bad day. She may just be having a bad day. She may have gotten a flat tire on her way to work. Like, it's not because she's on her period. That shouldn't be a statement that's generalized for all, like, bad behavior or upset behavior from a woman.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, but you're asking if there was
Well,
something.
yeah.
So there is something, you know, but I agree with you. And to go back on that male cycling, I believe I do cycle. I believe there are some times in the month where I'm more irritable than others, and it's regardless of whether I am hungry, tired, sleepy, whatever. In the last couple of years I've noticed it more, that I do cycle, and I don't know if it's in response to my wife's rotation, or maybe she's just irritated, I'm just irritated. I don't know what it is, but I admit that I do cycle.
We want to hear from you now.
Okay, I was going to say, I know some behavioral research lab, to the best of out of Penn, where even female researchers exclusively use male rats because your day-to-day behavioral rhythm for those male animals is more constant. They claim that there are differences you can see when female animals are used in studies. So there may be something to the perception about behavioral changes. I'm not sure.
What seems it's Valerie. What seems to work to me though is that if it really is a hormonal change that you cannot control, why women are shamed for it. Like you physically can, like if you feel this like anger that's really hormonal, like, and people are like, oh, like you're PMSing. You can't control it. Like you're feeling that. Like I feel like you shame someone for something that your body's naturally doing. Like rather than like making fun of it, because you can acknowledge that there is like actual data that you're hormonal and you're changing, your behavior is different. But it's like it's the reactions people have to it, that people aren't like, oh, like, I'm sorry that you're like going through this, like it probably must be crazy that like you were about to cry because you spilled your water and that really sucks that you're feeling like that. Rather than like, oh my god, you're crazy, you're PMSing, like you're a crazy woman, like it's different.
It almost seems like the word PMS is a synonym with female being bitchy, crazy.
Yeah.
Name all the negative descriptors that can tag onto us.
I'm actually really glad Val mentioned that because I think it is partly because of how people treat women differently when they think they're on their period or just in general. Like there's like I have 2 older brothers and I have several friends that are guys. Like as soon as they think I'm on my period, they get like really like careful about what they say around me.
That's nice.
But no, at the same time, it can be really frustrating because if you're in a workplace and say like you work with other men, like you don't want them to be treating you differently. You want them to be treating you as an equal. And when people start like, it's almost like they have to. It's almost like they kind of. It's not like they look down on you, but it's just like they're thinking about you in a different way that almost makes it like you're a little lesser than them. Like it's not like you can't be your full potential because of this. It's something that's perfectly natural, and it's not something we can control. And I just think it's wrong that people feel the need to treat women differently when they're on their period.
This is Jessica. So I think in like Western cultures, I think a lot of that has to do with the media, because I've seen so many movies and TV shows where like they'll have like, if you don't watch Modern Family, they have like a whole episode where all the daughter and the mom was like all in their hair at the same time, and like they were emotional wreck, and like the dad and the son were like creeping around and like trying to do, they didn't even want to invite them to where they were going because they were like, oh no, it's that time of the month, like we have to get out of here, don't let them know we're leaving. And it was just like it was hilarious, honestly. I'm not even gonna lie, because I was cracking up the entire time because they were crying at the SPCA commercial, and I cry at that all the time, even when I'm not on there. So they like over emotionalize everything, and like I feel like that happens in almost every movie, every TV show, and anything that they show on social media, like on media, period.
But we're talking about 2 different things here, I think. one thing we're talking about is what is the reality of physiological changes, hormonal changes at the time a woman is actually having her period. And as we've said, it fluctuates from woman to woman. It can be more severe, it can be less severe, just like cramps. Some women don't get them, some women do. Or over the course of a life cycle, it can change. But the other side of the coin is, because that happens, whenever a woman gets upset, it's like, oh, you just got your period. Like, it's not legitimate. You're not legit. Because I know that's what my ex-husband used to do. It's not really why he's my ex-husband, but now that I think about it, I don't know. But, you know, that would be it. I couldn't have a legitimate gripe. I was just having my period. Oh, that, you don't mean that. You just had your period. So that's an assumption that people are having.
And
So,
I think all of them, and also, in fact, I didn't met him as but a co-worker, he wonders, he's like, I don't know what's wrong. She was very this, you know. Maybe
So,
something happened.
Maybe a legitimately
Yes,
upset.
exactly.
Maybe something's really wrong.
So this is Ali again. So can I play a little devil's advocate here, just to irritate some people for fun? So when you know that you, it's not for the women, because you got the one out for us, that's what I'm doing. So when you are going through your cycle and you know you're extra emotional, do you in any way try to change your behavior or recognize that you're extra sensitive? And do you in any way try to change your behavior, just like, I forget your name, just like you know, men around you change their behavior, do you kind of recognize internally and you try to change your behavior as well? You know what I mean? So it's not complete polar opposites.
This is Lenny. Just to kind of answer that, I guess. My roommate is a kid, and I tell her, like, if something's bad's happened, like, let's say I got a flat tire, I come into the house and I'm like, listen, I'm pissed off. I don't want to talk about it. Likewise, though, I shouldn't have to, because it is a hormonal thing, I shouldn't have to apologize, again, like I was saying, for something that I can't control. So if I'm mad, I won't say, listen, like, I'm gonna be a bitch. I'll say, listen, like, if I make a mean comment, just tell me I don't mean to do it. So I think one of the important things is you can apologize for your behavior, but it should not be like this big, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I have no idea what's going on. It happens once a month. It's gonna happen. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. And so you shouldn't have to like just relentlessly apologize for something you don't have control over.
Just for clarification, I never said to apologize for behavior. So do you internally try to modify your behavior? I don't think anybody should apologize for that kind of behavior. It's natural, it's physiological, I don't think sure about it. But do you recognize that you're going through something and do you try to, as much as you can, to alter your behavior so, you know what I mean?
But I guess my answer was more, I'm not going to try to change how I am, but I will apologize because I know that it's possible for my behavior to fluctuate between whatever.
I was gonna say, half the time, I don't think I even realize if I'm being different. I think for me though, I'm on the lower spectrum of like, I don't really get affected by that. So if I am acting differently, I don't know. I don't, yeah.
I know, like, I can personally say, I'm also an athlete, so, admittedly being a female athlete with your period can be a little bit frustrating at times because, I will admit, like, I do get a little bit more irritated and sometimes more impatient when I'm on my period. I'm aware of that, and I try to make sure that, like, if I notice that it's happening, I kind of, like, try to take a step back and, like, take a deep breath. But, like, as athletes, it kind of falls into this, too. Like, we have to be conscious of how we're thinking and how we're acting because you have to be able to play through your period. It's just something women have to do when you play a sport, and so we are capable of doing that. And a lot of people just think that we're immediately going to be ticked off. Like, people thought I'm on my period like 2 days after it's ended, and I'm like, no, I was just on it. I'm fine.
We all have a couple more minutes left, and any final thoughts on this?
I would like to just put it out there as well, this is Anne again, is that when people are sick, they have coping mechanisms. When people have a whole range of different health challenges, of all kinds of biological normal processes, they have coping mechanisms. This is a normal biological process and that women go through, and most women develop coping mechanisms to be perfectly functional the entire time and do all kinds of things with great ability to excel. It's just that you have to have a set of coping mechanisms to be able to do that.
Final word?
So final comment, this is Lonnie, I'm sorry. I just, as a general thing, really appreciate everyone who came because I feel like our big topic was the stigma against periods, and I honestly think like having discussions like this is what's going to stop that stigma. So thank you to everybody who came.
Thank you all for coming. Any other comments? Last minute? Yes.
Okay. Is it? In dealing with things, I noticed first of all there was a inconsistency in some of the comments today. One being how we were talking about Hillary and how she ran for president, and then some people were using her, say, was it energy because she's. And I've heard this a lot. I've heard the how women are moody, have mood swings when they're having PMS, and then after that you say that someone said that Hillary might be a good candidate. So it seems it's used for good and bad. But then we said that no, that's not right. That's probably not. She's an adult. She knows how to handle herself. I don't think menstruation has anything to do with this. But then I also heard that during the menstrual cycle, when you're menstruating, you would cry because you dropped something. Someone said that in here. So there seems to be a discrepancy in just the way we're thinking about this. We don't, all right? And maybe to fix it shouldn't be to say, hey, we are perfectly capable all the time. No, maybe the solution is, hey, sometimes we do have mood swings, and you're gonna have to deal with that because that's 50%. That's just I'm a person.
So we're the majority now.
51%.
51% of the population.
Things need to change now.
Oh yeah.
I think we're finally, the director is giving the signal, so we're out of time, but thank you all for coming and talk about this difficult topic, and I hope the discussion continues, even out of this